They laughed together when the world wasn't watching, and they leaned on each other when life felt unbearably heavy. But behind those warm smiles lived quiet, tension, heartbreak, pride, and regret. For years, Elton John kept the truth hidden, about the bond he shared with Princess Diana, and about the pain that almost destroyed them both. Now, he is finally opening up about the friendship that reshaped their lives forever. Their story began in the summer of 1981, a year Britain would never forget. Prince Charles was preparing to marry Diana Spencer, and the nation was wrapped in fairy tale excitement. For Elton John, already a global superstar, that year marked something far more personal, the beginning of a friendship that would change him deeply. Elton was no stranger to royal circles. The Queen Mother admired his music. Princess Margaret, bold and rebellious, often invited him to private gatherings at Kensington Palace. He had dined with dukes, performed for aristocrats, and once joked with Prince Philip, who teased him about driving a bright yellow Aston Martin through Windsor. Yet despite all the glamour, Elton never truly felt at ease among royalty. That changed one unforgettable night at Prince Andrew's 21st birthday party inside Windsor Castle. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and jewels, heavy with tradition and expectation. Elton, dressed modestly by his standards, sat at the piano playing softly while guests mingled. He later admitted he felt awkward and out of place, surrounded by rigid formality. Then he looked up and saw her. Diana Spencer entered the room young, radiant, not yet a princess, and everything shifted. Elton later wrote that she possessed a rare ease, a gift for making people feel instantly comfortable. Their eyes met. He smiled shyly. She returned it with warmth. Minutes later, they were laughing like old friends. They joked about the stiff music and even mimed the Charlton right there in the ballroom. So unexpected that the Queen herself noticed and smiled. Elton later said it felt as though he had known Diana his entire life. For Diana, that humor was a lifeline. The weight of royal duty and relentless scrutiny was already closing in. For Elton, she was refreshingly real, sharp, funny, empathetic, and utterly unpretentious. He called her fabulous company, someone who loved to gossip but cared deeply about everyone around her. From that night on, their connection deepened. Both were outsiders in their own worlds. Elton, judged endlessly for who he was. Diana, surrendering her freedom to the royal machine. They understood each other without ever needing to say it out loud. That unspoken bond became one of the most remarkable friendships of their era. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, their closeness only grew. Publicly, the world saw smiles at charity events, concerts, and royal galas. Privately, they offered each other kindness when cameras were gone. Diana's marriage grew colder. Palace walls felt suffocating. Elton, behind sequins and applause, battled addiction, insecurity, and public judgment. They recognized the pain in one another instantly. Diana became deeply involved in Elton's Aid Eyes charity work at a time when fear and misinformation ruled. When she shook hands with AIDS patients without gloves, Elton knew the world had changed forever. She didn't care about image, she cared about people. Even with the weight she carried, Diana never lost her mischievous humor. She teased Elton about his outrageous outfits. She laughed loudly at his jokes while aristocrats looked on in shock. Chaos followed her everywhere. At one London dinner party, Richard Gere and Sylvester Stallone nearly came to blows over her attention. Diana didn't even try, people were simply drawn to her. But behind the glamour, her private life was heartbreaking. Bulimia, sleepless nights, a crushing sense of being unloved. Elton would visit just to sit and listen. No cameras, no performance. Just two friends escaping the pressure. By the early 1990s, they were like siblings, joking, arguing, leaning on one another. Yet even the strongest bonds can crack. In 1996, a single misunderstanding tore them apart. Elton was working on a charity photo book to raise money for AIDS causes. Diana had agreed to write the foreword. Then suddenly, a letter arrived from her office, formal, distant. She was withdrawing. Palace advisors had objected to her association with images of semi-male models. To Elton, it felt like betrayal. Hurt, he confronted her. Diana, overwhelmed and under pressure, replied with a letter he described as cold and final. Then came silence. At the same time, Diana had just finalized her divorce. She lost her title, her protection, and her sense of belonging. Surrounded by conflicting agendas, she didn't know who to trust. Elton later admitted the truth. "We were both too proud," he said. "I should have picked up the phone." They never did. Nearly a year passed. Then fate intervened. In July 1997, their close friend Gianni Versace was murdered. At his funeral in Milan, Diana spotted Elton sitting in grief. They hadn't spoken for months, but she walked over, took his hand and whispered, "I'm so sorry." This falling out was silly. Let's be friends again. Then, as only Diana could, she joked, actually, I'd love a polo. They laughed. The ice melted. The friendship returned. 6 weeks later, Diana was gone. On August 31st, 1997, Elton woke to a fax. Confused, he turned on the television. Princess Diana had been killed in a car crash in Paris. She was 36. I couldn't believe it, Elton said. We had just laughed together weeks earlier. Asked to perform at her funeral, he rewrote Candle in the Wind. On September 6th, inside Westminster Abbey, his hands shook as he sang goodbye to England's Rose. It wasn't a performance. It was a farewell. The song became the best-selling single in history, yet Elton never celebrated it. To him, it wasn't success. It was loss. He kept his promise to protect her sons. When Prince Harry faced relentless media intrusion, Elton spoke out, determined history would not repeat itself. Years later, the regret still lingers. If I could go back, he said, I'd pick up the phone. Life is too short for pride. Their friendship was rare royal and a rock star bound by loneliness, humor, and truth. Through Elton, the world saw Diana as she truly was. Through Diana, Elton rediscovered compassion and purpose. Even now, when the crowd falls silent and he sits at the piano, Elton swears he can still hear her laugh. Their bond was imperfect, cracked by pride, sealed forever by a song. And decades later, the world still feels the loss while Elton carries her memory like a candle that never goes out.